My name is Jamin. I'm your first friend in Alaska, and luckily for you, I'm also an associate real estate broker in South Central Alaska. And today we're going to be talking about a topic that I know quite a few folks are going to be interested in, and that is how to appeal, or in other words, how to try to lower your assessed value for your property taxes. In other words, how do you try to reduce your property taxes, specifically in the Matsu Valley? Now, this is going to be a process that's going to be very similar, if not identical, to how Anchorage's system is set up. I'm sure there's going to be some differences, but we're going to be jumping into that and kind of giving you kind of some insights into what it's like. I recently had my dad go through this process, so I can actually give some pretty good insights into what it's actually like, in addition to just the overall process and how it works. Before we get started, though, make sure you give this video a like, subscribe, just so everyone knows that this is good content. And like I said, please subscribe. Apparently 3/4 of y'all watch this show and don't actually subscribe, so please do so. That does help out quite a bit. And let's go and jump into it. Now, first off, I'm going to go ahead and start by saying that you do not have to disclose to the tax man how much you paid for your property in Alaska. Now, they are going to send you a notice once the property does close. They'll ask you, hey, how much did you pay for it? You do not have to tell them, okay? Because they just want to jack your taxes up. That's all that they want to do, and you do not have to tell them in Alaska. It's a non-disclosure state. Now, they'll send you another letter, and it's going to look official because it is, because legally they can ask you. You're not required to tell them, though. Throw both those letters away and do not give them that information. But in the event that the assessment comes back on the property around, I think it's the first quarter of the year, if I recall correctly, and it says your assessed value for the property is now exorbitantly higher than what the actual market value is, then you can go ahead and start the appeal. Usually, though not always guaranteed, usually you can make an appeal, and they're going to reduce it by at least some amount, not guaranteed, but usually. Now, one thing to keep in mind before you start this entire process is the grounds for an appeal are usually based on some very narrowly defined parameters that, of course, works for the benefit of the assessor. So the first ground that you can really go off of is there incorrect information about the property that they have on their assessment? In other words, are they calculating it in as though you have 2,000 square feet extra? Are they saying you have more garage stalls than you actually have? Do you have, are they saying you have more bedrooms or bathrooms than you really do? Stuff like that. Another reason that they will, that you can go ahead and appeal it is if they come back and they say that if you come back and can prove that they are evaluating your property at a significantly higher value than what it actually is. And that does give you grounds to do that. You have to be able to actually prove that, and we're going to talk about more about that and further on in this video. Another reason that you can appeal it is if the tax value you are paying is just inequitable. In other words, you're paying a lot more for the exact same property than your neighbor is, at which point it's well, how come I'm paying a $600,000 assessed value and the neighbor's only paying $450,000 or something like that? And they're exact same houses, so obviously that's inequitable, and you can make an appeal based off of that. Now, these are very narrowly defined parameters, okay? So if you come in and try to make an appeal based upon, well, it's just gone up too quickly, they're going to tell you that's not a good enough reason, because they try to base it off of the market and how quick things are appreciating in the market, which is an incredibly annoying thing, because I've heard them come back before and try to say that, well, in 2021, we increased the value by 18% year over year. And it's well, hold on. The most that it increased was about 15%. And that's even the very high water mark. And we've been at, 3, 4, maybe 5% since then. So no, I'm not buying this, that they're just following the market. Because if they were, it wouldn't have gone up 18%. It would have gone up 15 at the most for 1 year. But anyway, what you're going to run into is you got to make sure that you stay within those parameters. You don't start talking about property taxes in general being unconstitutional, or get sidetracked on, it's unfair that the burden of proof is on me to prove this, and you guys hold all the cards, and you expect me to just play along in this system that's clearly not set up to really help me out very much at all. Don't get into all of that. It's not going to help you. It's not going to help your appeal. You have to really just stay laser focused on just those reasons that are good enough by their definition to appeal. All that being said, though, if you do want to go down this process, step number one is really taking a good hard look at the little slip that they'll send you in the mail, usually about the first quarter of the year. Pay really close attention to the instructions and pay really close attention to the dates. Like, some people get a little lackadaisical with dates and think everything's flexible. It is not. The date is there. Do not miss the date. Okay, are we clear on that? Everyone's got it? Okay, the dates are the dates. Okay, they're not going to make exceptions. They're looking for any reason to reject your appeal, and if you're late with trying to contest something, then you're giving them an easy win. Now, if there's a simple mistake on they're evaluating the property and they say like, hey, you're saying I've got 2 more bedrooms than I do, then you've got 30 to 60 days to make that appeal and get that done. Usually that's usually a pretty easy thing to prove, but there is a timeline on it and you have to read those instructions on the little card to make sure that you've got the right timeline. All right, step number 2. Once you've kind of got all your information together and kind of know the process a little bit after reading the card and the dates, give the assessor a call and see if you can just resolve it over the phone. Now, there's a good chance that they're going to ask to come over to your property to maybe verify there's really only 3 bedrooms, or maybe they want to see the quality of the place to give you a good feel for it. I know the instinct is to say, no, I don't want the tax man coming into my property. Like, I can't see anything good coming from that, but realistically, this is going to be the best thing you can do in order to help yourself. So in order to have a strong case, them being able to put eyes on the property is really going to help you. And if you have a property where, obviously it's way overpriced based on, kind of those things I mentioned before, then it's a good idea just to let them in. Regardless, you kind of have to just muscle your way past the knee-jerk reaction of saying like, no, the assessor, tax man, or tax woman can't come anywhere near my house. All right, third step that you need to do is, if you do not come to an agreement with the assessor that you agree with, let's say that they evaluated the property, or they took another look at it and said, no, we still believe that this is the correct value and we're sticking to this, then you can make an appeal to the Board of Equalization. And what this is this is a board of citizens in the area. They don't directly work for the city or specifically for the tax assessor's office. These are citizens, and you can go ahead and make an appeal to this board, so you can essentially have your day in court. That's really what it's designed to do, figuratively. Now, when you are making the appeal, pay really close attention to all the dates. Okay, you want to really make sure you're paying attention to that again. And you also want to make sure once you make this appeal, you get access to all the information about your property. Usually it's going to be your property ID or your tax ID, I believe is usually what it is. You can go on the Matsu Borough website, look it up, and get all the official data for your property there and start seeing if you can compare your property with recent properties that have been sold in your specific area. Okay, now step 4 is really taking that deep dive and doing that research and seeing, okay, verifying, do they have all the correct number of bedrooms and bathrooms, and then does the website reflect the correct number of bedrooms and bathrooms that you have, stuff like that, and then looking at the comparable properties in the area. Now, at this point, not a formal appeal to the Board of Equalization until you have actually formally made that application. So at this point, still technically just talking to the assessor, but we're definitely trending in that direction. Now, let's go and take a break real quick here. For those who've been watching for a little bit, you do know I host a podcast called the Alaskan Journey Podcast, where I talk with people who've recently moved up here. If that would benefit you, do make sure you go check that out in the description section down below. It's a lot of fun on that show, and also gives me a chance to stay connected with people who have recently moved up here to Alaska. And also, this is just kind of a PSA. I get most of my income actually from buying and selling real estate with folk, or helping people buy and sell real estate. And people see the all the content I put out here and just assume I'm too busy to help them. I am never too busy to help someone with real estate, so feel free to reach out and be happy to get that done. Now, let's go and talk about further steps you can take in order to make your appeals successful if you're trying to appeal your assessed value. All right, step 5. Let's say still talking with the assessor, still can't come to an agreement there. Now is the time to make your formal appeal to the Board of Equalization. You kind of know what that is. Now it's time to actually fill out the paperwork, make that official appeal, get on the schedule, and then you can really start doing the homework you need to do in order to be prepared to have a really convincing case for yourself when you go before the board to discuss it. Now, there are only 4 grounds for valuation adjustments, and they are unequal, excessive, improper, or undervaluation. Realistically, 3. Nobody's going to go in there and argue for undervaluation. But while you're in there, you have to make sure you have good comparable properties, and you have to be able to summarize your entire case in 5 minutes. Okay, so it's very direct. You're not going to be going in there, and you really can't talk about a whole lot else other than the specific stuff, the specifics of your case. So you have to make sure you have that very fine-tuned and ready to go, and you got your stats locked and loaded and ready to go, because that is going to help you a ton. If you're going to the Board of Equalization, probably getting some kind of an appraisal from an appraiser, not an assessor, from an appraiser, is going to be a good investment for you. You want to do this with enough time for the appraiser to go out there, because if you bought or sold a home recently, it takes a long time to get on an appraiser's schedule. So if you want to go ahead and get that done, probably 2 weeks to like a month ahead of time, just to make sure that it's good to go. But having some kind of a report from a licensed appraiser is going to really help you out a ton. All right, now when you go before the board here, I've got a couple of points for you. Number 1, like I mentioned before, make sure you have all your stats and everything printed out and ready to go. And also make sure that you stay really focused on what your specifics of your case are. And what I mean by that is, believe me, I can get in there and I can start talking about, well, I don't think this is right. The burden of proof is upon me. Okay, the burden of proof should be on the powers that be to prove that my property is worth this, and not the other way around. Why am I having to do this? The equivalent would be like assuming that someone being charged with a crime is guilty until proven innocent. That's kind of the equivalent there. So I don't like that. Not a good place to argue about that, though. If you do have that concern, talk with your assembly member, and you might make a lot more headway there. Okay, I cannot overemphasize this, especially if the assessor did not go over to your house, but take a lot of pictures of your property, like a lot, okay? Bathrooms, kitchen, outside, bedrooms, stairways, the exterior. Let's shoot for about 50 to 70 different pictures of the property. And these don't have to be professional or anything. They do have to be clear enough so people can kind of see what you're talking about, especially if your case is that, the quality of this property is not the same as the property you're comparing it against. Okay, well, we need to be able to show that. So as many possible pictures as you can, especially if the assessor has not gone over to your property. All right. Also, when I said come ready, locked and loaded with your data, come ready with some recent comparable properties that have actually sold. Now, you can work with a real estate agent or preferably an appraiser, because they're going to do all that legwork for you if you hire them to do that. But what these stats are going to do, what these comparable properties are, is they are similar to your property in the area. Now, there's a lot of variables that kind of determines whether or not a property is a good comparable. You want to have upwards of 4, which really don't like that, because sometimes you just don't have 4 good comparables to compare the property with. If there is a really unique property, there might be 1, maybe 2 properties that are real and true comparables, where the condition is right, size of the lot is pretty comparable, it's in the same kind of area, the age of the property is right, the remodel is right, the condition is pretty close, the layout is right. Like, you can't compare a ranch-style home with a 2-story property. There's just a ton of variables like that, where once you start eliminating properties, you might be down to like 1, maybe 2 good comparables. And I hate it when they say, well, we found 4 comparables. It's like, well, you didn't find a single good one. So I've got more than you, but find as many comparables as you can. Also, don't get into an argument with them based on what I just said either. That's probably not going to help you very much either. Next, make sure you are ready to poke holes as many of those comps that they give you as possible. In a case that I saw, they were using ranch style homes compared to a 2-story property with a walkout basement. Completely, vastly different properties. Okay, so being able to poke holes in that, poke holes in the condition of the property, size of the lot, the year that it was built, the area that it's in. Like, we all know certain areas are a lot more affluent and a lot newer and have a lot more appeal than other areas. And if you're just using stuff from the higher priced areas to compare to the lower priced areas, then obviously it's going to throw off the numbers, and being able to show, well, no, like absolutely not. These are not comparables. So you want to win at their own game using their own rules. They want to use properties in order to demonstrate your property is worth this because their comparable property sold for that. But you want to show, well, yeah, I agree. That's a good process. The problem is the property you found is not, in fact, a good comparable. Okay, so that's what you're wanting to do. Poke holes in the properties that they're trying to use as comparables. Also, have those comparables printed off that are going to be used to demonstrate your case, and also have any relevant statistics for the real estate market ready to show as well. What is the average price per square foot for the different areas that they're trying to take samples from? Is it drastically higher than the area that you're in? Being able to demonstrate that and show through authoritative statistics and not just Zillow or something like that. Okay, talk with a real estate broker to try to ascertain that stuff from the actual source of the MLS, and that is going to be really useful for you when you're talking with them. Again, remember, you've only got 5 minutes, okay, and then you get 2 minutes for a rebuttal when they come back and they try to say that your comps aren't good, or any number of things. So just have those stats locked and loaded and ready to go, and be very structured and organized in how it is that you're going to talk about it, because 5 minutes comes and goes in just a blink. So make sure you've got that ready to go. All right, step 6. Let's say you go through this entire process, and keep in mind the Board of Equalization meeting will usually take about an hour or so. If you go through the entire process and they say, hey, we're still, we're not buying it, we think your property actually is worth this, like that's what the board is saying, then that's kind of the end of it. But you can go appeal to a court, to a superior court, is really what it is. Now, how many people actually go down that route? I don't know. For a lot of people, the trail kind of ends there, and it's kind of frustrating if you've gone through all that work. But I will say, if you do decide, like you learn and say, hey, I think I know where we could have improved our case, like I think I could have done more with this step or that step, then by all means make sure that you just have all that information ready to go for next year, because I guarantee you it's going to come around next year and you're going to have a chance to go through the entire process all over again. This time, though, you're much more prepared than you were the first time. So this has been my video kind of talking about how you might be able to lower your property tax values. As a rule of thumb, if you see the assessed value and it says like your property is worth less than what you really and truly believe the market value to be, then I would not say a thing. Okay, just hold your tongue, don't say anything. If you start trying to fight that and it's obvious that, they've assessed you less than the market value, you're just going to rat yourself out, and congrats, your taxes just went up. So don't say anything unless the tax assessment comes back and it's obviously just way higher. And again, this is going to be something where, you're going to have as many stats ready to go as possible. Don't argue with the system itself. Argue that, hey, I'll play by your rules, and actually, you're not following your own rules because this, and that. Okay, that's really what you're trying to do. Anyway, I'm starting to ramble here. Thanks for watching. Let me know if you do have any questions. You also might consult an attorney. I'm not sure an attorney would help very much for this level of stuff, but it definitely couldn't hurt. I will have a link to the website with the Matsu Borough talking about all these steps in more detail. Don't just Don't just take this one video as the only source of information out there. Things do change, so I will link to the Matsu Borough website, and make sure you go follow that really closely if you are wanting to appeal your assessed value. Thanks for watching. See you later.